Good evening, everyone. We're going to treat this like church. I want you to come a little closer as you're coming in. Come to the front. Make sure you come and take a seat closer to the front. Thank you very much. So good evening, my name is Beverly Burks, and I serve as the Community Engagement Director for Fulton-DeKalb Hospital Authority, the proud owners of Grade A Health Systems. It is indeed a pleasure for us to have this event today. It is Community Conversations, and we're talking about teens and mental health. It is important that we provide the information and resources to our teens as well as their parents so that they can make sure that their children are thriving and being successful not only in school, but what they do to day-to-day lives. And so with this, I have the distinct pleasure, and hopefully someone in the sound system will cut the music off. Thank you. To introduce our chairwoman for Fulton-DeKalb Hospital Authority, who is over our Board of Trustees, and that is Sharon Bent Hartley. So please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you, Beverly. And I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for being here. And I especially wanted to say a huge thank you to my commissioner, Larry Johnson. I want to thank you so much for hosting this event, pulling together this event, because this is a huge topic and it's very important, especially in DeKalb County. We know what's been happening. So I'm going to make a few remarks, and then we'll get to these panelists. And what I would say is that this is going to be a great evening, and we're happy to welcome the community conversation on teen mental health. I'm happy to see each of you and encouraged that you've taken the time to join us for such an important discussion. This is an outgrowth and follow-up from our 2019 Health Summit held last fall. We committed to continuing our conversation on mental health and focusing on an area that far too often is just simply not discussed, especially in certain communities today. At this time, you are intentionally seeking education and empowering yourself with knowledge that can become the difference in not just surviving, but actually thriving. Before we begin the panel discussion, however, I want to briefly share with you some facts about mental disorders in U.S. children. And this is from the CDC data and statistics on children's mental health. Mental disorders among children are described as serious changes in the way children typically learn, behave, or handle their emotions, causing distress and problems getting through the day. ADHD, behavior problems, anxiety, and depression are the most commonly diagnosed mental disorders in children. Some of these conditions commonly occur together. Depression and anxiety diagnoses have increased over time. Mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders begin in early childhood, as early as age 2 to 8 years of age. Rates of mental disorders change with age. Diagnosis of depression and anxiety are more common with increased age. Behavior problems are more common among children aged 6 to 11 years than children younger or older. So with that being said, just a few more statistics. Many family, community, and healthcare factors are related to children's mental health. So community is huge, which is why this discussion is huge. Among children aged 2 to 8 years, boys were more likely than girls to have a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Among children living below 100% of the federal poverty level, more than 1 in 5, that's actually 22% guys, had a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Age and poverty level affected the likelihood of children receiving treatment for anxiety, depression, or behavior problems. The most common mental illnesses in teens are generalized anxiety, which is really excessive worry about everyday matters, social phobias, we see a lot of that, severe feelings of self-consciousness and insecurity in social settings, depression, persistent feelings of sadness, anxiety, and or emptiness. So with that being said, I'm going to turn you over to our panel discussion. And what I would say is early diagnosis and appropriate services for children and their families can make a difference in lives of children with mental disorders. Access to providers who can offer services, including screenings, referrals, and treatment, varies based on where you live. This is why the FDHA focuses on preparing individuals for improving mental wellness, reducing the stigmas of mental health in teens. Here to do just that, as well as share with you the warning signs you should be vigilant about, our expert panels. And I would be amiss if I did not say, being an OBGYN, this really starts in utero. That is why prenatal care, preconception advice, and preconception counseling and prenatal classes are also a huge part of this equation. From my perspective, it starts before conception and in utero. That impacts our children's brains. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Fulton-DeKalb Hospital Authority, I'd like to welcome you all again tonight, and thank you for joining us for our teen community conversation on this evening. My name is DeCita Daniels, and I serve as the Community Engagement Coordinator with the FDHA. And this evening, I'll be welcoming our wonderful moderator, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Larry Johnson was elected as the DeKalb 3rd District Commissioner in November 2002. With the overwhelming support of the community, he won with 92% of the vote, making him one of the youngest commissioners to ever be elected to serve on the Board of Commissioners. He was re-elected for his 5th term with a landslide victory over his opponent in November 2018. Commissioner Johnson's leadership is exemplified in many ways, but most obviously in services that benefit youth and health. Commissioner Johnson is a long-term advocate of health and health-related issues. Accordingly, he spearheaded the DeKalb Walks for the Health of It, an initiative he designated walking as the official exercise of DeKalb, the only locality in Georgia or the U.S. to do so. His commitment to health further captured the attention of former First Lady Michelle Obama, which subsequently caused him to be involved with her national Let's Move campaign. Commissioner Larry Johnson was elected 2nd Vice President of National Association of Counties in July 2009. In 2017, he was appointed as the chair of the Large Urban County Caucus. 2005, he chaired the Health Disparities Subcommittee of the Health Steering Committee of NACO. He continues to work in numerous other leadership capacities with NACO from 2005 to the present. Commissioner Johnson graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with his bachelor's degree in community health. He later earned a master's degree in public health from University of Northern Colorado. Commissioner Johnson is married and he has 1 daughter. So if you all could please give Commissioner Johnson a warm welcome as he comes to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Good for you. Glad that you are here, and welcome to our Porter Sanford Performing Arts and Community Center. This is a great opportunity, a great turnout tonight, and I'm glad that you all are part of what we're doing. I'm going to do some housekeeping things up front. I want to thank all of our providers that were in the hallway. Y'all give them a great hand because part of what we want to do today, I want to make sure that you have the resources for you to succeed and for you to be successful. So please take advantage of all of the resources that we had and that's out there. How many of you all had a chance to use the new voting machines? I want you all, before you leave, to get a chance to use those voting machines, because everything that we talk about tonight, everything that we want to do in the future, anything that you want to get done in your community, it has to have a public policy attached to it. The only people who make public policy in America are elected officials. Everybody in this room has influence. You can influence, but the only ones who raise their hand to say we can have this in the budget, we can have that in the budget, I want this after-school program, I want sidewalks, I want to stop all these liquor stores from coming into my community. Those things are done by folks who are elected by you, the people. And so it's very important that you understand the power that you have and that you possess. The other part of the power that you have is that we're about to do something that we do once every 10 years. This was started in 1790 when America only had 3.9 million Americans in this country. It's called the census. Everybody say the census. We need for you, everybody, the citizens in this room, we have to count every person in America. It's not based on if you're a citizen or not. Every person, this is a constitutional mandate. So it's going to start April 1st. Basically, it used to be, in the old days, you had about 20-some pages to fill out. Now we got digitally savvy, so it's only 10 minutes and 10 questions. So if you're going to get an email, and it's going to give you some numbers, and then you plug them in. But if you don't want to do it online, you can do it on the phone, or you can make sure someone comes to your house and you can help fill it out. Why is the census important? The census is so important because you have to count the population. Say, for instance, I have a program that want to deal with young people and mental health. I got 10,000 people who want to use the program, but I only had 1,000 people fill out the census. So guess what happens? You're only going to get money for 1,000 people because the census is based on population and how your dollars are coming to your community. And so that's why it's important for everybody on the sound of my voice, please, please, please fill it out. We also have areas in the county where we have folks that don't fill it out normally. DeKalb County, we did our last one in 2010. We had a 72% return rate. I'm shooting for 100%. Anybody want to go for 100? Yeah. Because 99.5 won't do. But we did it in 2010, and we lost about $275 million because you only get one time every 10 years to do it. We have a chance to get $1.8 billion a year. And why is that significant? This past summer, we fed over 200,000 young people breakfast and lunch. Because some people feel that when you leave school in the summer, most folks have food. But that's not the case. And so those programs are dictated by the funds and the population. Also, we need after-school programs. We need senior programs. We need help with our repairs of your home. People want information on how to locate a business. All of that is done by data that's derived from the census. So young people that's in this room, I need your help. Everybody needs your help. But please get this information. It's DeKalbCounts2020.org, DeKalbCounts2020.org. And I think that's important. The other part of the census is it determines the boundaries for all of our elected offices. I came on board in 2002. I had ran for office in 2000. I had lost my race. I came in 5th place. But I went to go work for someone who beat me because I wanted to be part of making a difference in our community. And so then the seat got redistricted and it came up in 2002. I made it to the runoff by 141 votes. 141 votes got me to the runoff. And so at that point they were saying I was too young, that I couldn't do it. And so I lost every precinct. And then I turned it around in 3 weeks and won 70%. Thank you. But part of it is, I'm telling you this story, is not to give up, but if you want to make change, you want to make lasting impact, you want to build on the assets of everybody in this room, it allowed me to do the Port of Sanford Performing Arts Center. This center right here was built an $18 million facility. Next door is a park. We got the first park that let residents plant their own garden. Around the corner is the first intergenerational center in the Southeast. It's a 30,000 square foot building, indoor track. We got computers where young people can go and create their own apps. You go on Friday, you can see a bridge game going on in basketball at the same time. How many think you can do that? But that has allowed us to create the wellness zone in this area. I got Baptist, I got the third largest Buddhist Wat in the world right down the street here. But this is what I call the wellness zone. But the opportunity to serve gave me opportunity to do some great things why you all are here tonight. Because public policy, being engaged, will allow us to make sure the voices that don't get heard at the table. And so, with that being said, I'll give you some key factors. And I picked up one that I really want to talk about because a lot of people understand this the most. And it talks about depression. I was on 102.5 on Tuesday night. They had me up late. I left. We had a board meeting from 9 o'clock that morning. We finished at 10:30 Tuesday night, and I had 11 o'clock appointment down at 102.5. I didn't get out there until like 12:30, so I had to be crunk like y'all. But one of the things they talked about was what people think causes depression. And what people think that causes depression. This is what people think. They think weakness, they think laziness, they think inability to suck it up. But what actually causes depression? And here's some of the things that cause depression. Trauma, abuse, neglect, bullying, chemical imbalance, grief and loss, overworking, excess stress, being the carer at the expense of your own well-being. How many of y'all take care of everybody and then you turn around and you looking for somebody to help you and then you're struggling? Genetic factors, lack of fulfillment, lifestyle factors, body image issues, perfectionism, lack of social support, and low self-esteem. Those are the actual causes of depression. And I had a chance to be with Oprah on Saturday. And Oprah talked about mindfulness, being present in the moment, listening to your body to make sure you're in tune to what's going on. And it's all around wellness, mind, body, and spirit in equilibrium to each other. A lot of people can work out. How many people think we need to, got to do your exercise? It's 30 minutes a day and all that. You want to do your exercise. But do you know you have to do a mental health exercise? You got to work out your mind. If you're dealing with a lot, and you see a lot come on you, you got to find ways to find the support and ways to deal with mechanisms. And you're going to find out about these young people tonight. They're going to share with us some mechanisms, and that's why I'm proud of them and what we're doing. So I want to welcome you here. We also have performing arts coming up called Karma. What goes around comes around. It talks about mental health. I got our director, producer in the back. Wave your hand. It's a young man. He owns his own company, but he also produces his own plays. So we want to be in the acting industry. You need to talk to him. But he's going to be here February 28th through March 1st. But he's going to talk about how mental health and how relationships can cause depression, bipolar interactions. And so if you want to see a great play, you can see him. He might even give you a discount since you came tonight. Hint, hint. So I want to open it up for our discussion that we are having tonight. And I want to thank President Ben Hartley. She's a medical doctor. Where is she? She up front. Wait, she spoke earlier. Dr. Ben Hartley, where is she? Right here? Right here. Wave your hand. I want you to give her a great hand. Because Fulton-DeKalb Hospital Authority funded this event tonight. She is a leader in her own right. She's been in the medical field over 30 years. She owns her own practice. She's right here in DeKalb County. But they are the owners of the Grady Health System. We're in the process of helping our good doctor, our president, our leader, because they're about to build a new surgical center. and also expand the HIV/AIDS clinic on Ponds for the Grady Health Systems. So I want to thank them for their support and for their staff that came up. I saw Ms. Burks and Rick and the other staff. So y'all give them a great hand for being a part of this. And I saw our dynamic police officers are in the room. They are angels. They protect us. They're here. This is our community network, community team that comes out to the community. They're in the back. I want them to wave because they're here to listen because what I decided a long time ago that everybody don't need to be locked up. Everybody, because you see on the street who's hanging out, and so what they do is they have resources that's available for folks who are homeless, who are dealing with mental health issues. They actually give you brochures to help you find resources. And so I appreciate that because they're looking at prevention first and trying to make a difference as opposed to what people do now. They, we put folks in jail, but the jail is not the place for folks who deal with mental illness. They need help, they need treatment. So I appreciate that. So we have our young people here tonight, and I want to introduce them as they get started. Our first one is Sakira Walker, 10th grade, who attends Maynard Jackson High School. She has been with Holistic Stress Control Institute for 2 years. She participates in workshops. Wave your hand, wave your hand, wave your hand. She attends festivals and promotes mental health and stress management. She also dances. I also want to introduce Emma Mack. Wave your hand, Miss Mack. 17 years of age. She attends Rockdale Magnet and George Film, design, hiking, and curating playlists. I want to introduce Jabari Courtney. A graduating senior at Benjamin Banneker High School who is a journalist for teen media outlet Vox. You want to get that newspaper. I mean, if you want to see something that speaks to young people, that newspaper speaks to them. I get a chance to read it, and I enjoy it. I said I had to have them on this program tonight because they know how to keep it real, and they're relevant to what's going on now. He's a local events organizer, a creative artist showcase, Junkman Shrine. He wants to continue to organize even larger music events such as Coachella and the Governor's Ball. We also have Kenyana Williams. Oh, that's not it. What's your name, young man? Ridwan Muhammad. Yes. You're going to have to introduce yourself because you just got on that stage. So grab that mic because I want everybody to know y'all. Right? All right. Tell us who you are and what school.
Hey, everybody. My name is Ridwan Muhammad. I'm from Clarkson High School. I'm a senior. Yeah.
You the man? All right. Give it up for our panel. So what we're going to do is we have the teen panel first, and then we have an adult panel, and then we're going to ask questions. And so you all get ready. We have 2 mics in each aisle that you can ask questions. And I'll kick it off, and then I'll turn it over to our young people who can answer these questions. And I'll start off with one question, and then we'll go down the road you can answer. Do you feel that mental health resources are made readily available to you? Do you feel mental health resources are made readily available to you? And answer in your own way, and add your little, you want to rap? And I'm just kidding. But just let folks know about that question so we can understand, is there a lot of resources for you? Take it away. Anybody can start.
Hi. My experiences with acquiring mental health resources, I would say I would start in the school systems. I would say they're not available, or in terms of my experiences, they're not really distributed because I would start with counselors. Counselors are supposed to be there to support you and things like that, but I feel like as counselors, their jobs have shifted to be more focused on classes and schedules and things like that, so they don't have the time to support students in their times of need and things like that. So I feel... Oh, I'm sorry. Can y'all hear me now? Okay, cool. Y'all want to re-say that, or? Okay, awesome. Okay, basically I was saying I feel in schools, I feel in schools that mental health resources should be more readily available for students because that's supposed to be done through our counselors. However, our counselors are so they have their own like heavy workload of like dealing with students' schedules and things like that aren't even like mainly focused on their students' lives. So when things like that come into focus, students aren't able to access their counselors because they're so busy dealing with other things. So I feel like there should be other resources or other employees implemented to help students in terms of like when they're dealing with mental health problems and things like that. So yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
Okay. Well, my school, yeah, we have people who, like our counselors, they also make time for people to talk to them about what they're going through or anything. Yeah, well, my experience, I have people I can talk to.
All right. I actually really do agree with Jabari. I really do agree with him because a lot of the times the adults that do work at the school, in the school system, a lot of the times their primary job is to basically get the student from 9th grade to 12th grade and basically see them cross the stage. And I feel like that's their main goal. Their main goal is to see them get to that point to scratch stage. And a lot of the times we forget that these, growing teenagers have these certain experiences, whether it be at home, whether it be outside of school or in school. And a lot of the times they don't feel as comfortable talking with the adults they really don't have those people in their lives. So I feel like making certain places in school that can be like that comfort zone where these kids can basically almost just vent and have somebody to listen to them, because a lot of times kids don't feel like they have an adult that will listen to them, that won't judge them, because a lot of times it's hard to speak to a parent and speaking to another adult that might judge them. So finding a place that there's going to be no judgment and somebody you feel like is going to listen and care for you. So I feel like that's the way to handle mental health in the school system.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Knight?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as the two guys on the stage where we don't have enough counselors within our school systems to adequately make sure everyone's taken care of. I know that at my school we actually have like double the amount that usually is state mandated because of how many people were requesting for there to be 2 counselors because we have a small school. And even with that, last semester I went through and I was trying to get somewhat into that system where I was trying to talk to my counselors, and you're supposed to be able to just go at any point. If they're not there, you can go through and write your name on a list. So I wrote my name on the list. And the next time it was mentioned to me was 3 weeks later when I accidentally ran to my counselor in the library, and she said, "Oh, sorry, your name got lost in the list somewhere. Was there something you needed to talk about?" But at that point, 3 weeks later, that could 100% be too late for someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis. So we really need to make a more efficient system.
All right, that's it. This is a question that, and it's relevant and it goes on a lot. You have, how do you deal with bullying and cyberbullying? That's the thing that a lot of young folks go through, and we need help as adults on how we can help you. But how do you all deal with it? Give us some ideas.
So from my experiences, I feel like bullying was something that I feel like was more prevalent when I was younger and in elementary and middle school, and I think that's a huge problem with younger students. But I feel like when you get older to high school, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist at all, but through my experiences, I feel like your focuses change, and there's so many other things happening because you're getting older, you become an adult, and there's so many other things that have to be focused on. Not saying it's not a problem. I feel like bullying for high schoolers is more, I would say it's more prevalent on social media sites, and it's not even with people you know. It might just be random people on the internet who say things that's kind of just who are you, So yeah.
Well, picking up what he said, in high school, pretty much everybody focused on graduating and getting their grades good, not really having friends, or like, it's mostly on social media when people get bullied. But other than that, you don't deal with bullying in high school. And I never really saw bullying actually happening, so I can't even say that.
So I do agree with the two young adults that just spoke about bullying in high school, and I do believe it's a much younger thing. Fortunately, I was never bullied or seen anything happen with bullying, but I do believe, social media with especially in the teenage years, cyberbullying is a big problem because it's widespread and it spreads very quickly, especially with the people in the school. And not to say anything about the children that do attend the school, but it's like the cool, funny thing to spread something. So if something were to happen to a student, something embarrassing, and it spreads, because it does spread like a wildfire almost, where students will post the fight of somebody getting attacked, or somebody will make fun of this kid. There's certain things that are going to be spread, and it's mainly through social media because it's almost accessible to everybody. In this day and age, kids basically all have a phone from age 6. So we grow up so attuned, and it's normal to us to have this social media with us. So I guess, social media and cyberbullying would be what we should focus on, because it's become almost an antiquated way of thinking for somebody to actually go and take a kid's lunch money. So it's, it's more cyber, if anything.
Yeah, I really don't have much to add to that. It was more so something that I dealt with in middle school, but I mean, I feel like when you get into high school, it's kind of like you're supposed to grow up by then. If someone tries to say something to someone else that's like negative, it's like you kind of get canceled now for that. Like, that's just not cool. So I feel like really that's the only reason that people went to social media, is because if it happens in real life, people are going to stop you kind of immediately, but it's more so of like a space where there's a barrier.
Wow. Okay. That's a great answer. Appreciate that. Now, what goes along with bullying is the stress component. And you all see it at the very level in school, in the community, in your just extracurricular activities. Talk to us about how do you deal, give us some ideas of how do you deal with stress, and also who do you talk to when you're going through stress, or say, give suggestions to us on who should we talk to if you're not dealing with stress at that moment. But talk to us about how do you deal with stress, and where should we go if we're having stressful moments or need some help?
Hi again, okay. I feel like for me when I'm stressed, it's kind of hard to deal with stress because I feel like in today's age there's like so many opportunities for teens and things like that. So there's like with social media it's so competitive. So you spend all of your time doing all of these different things, and it's different for all teens. But I feel like it's like the thing, it's time. So it's hard to deal with stress because it's like, do you have time to deal with stress? And you're just like so focused on doing things, you barely have time to acknowledge what's happening. And in terms of like talking to people and things like that, for me, I know it's I'm not saying it's difficult to talk to people, but I'm so focused on doing things, I kind of almost forget that maybe I should talk to somebody about what's happening and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay, so agreeing with him, once you like put yourself into doing something, activity at school or joining clubs or anything, you wouldn't think about doing stress. You wouldn't think about having stress. You would think about like other things, like you wouldn't have time to talk to nobody. You would be happy if you join a club, make friends, make new friends, or just do activities that can I don't know, but you can like do club activities that you won't think about the bad thing that's going on in life, basically.
Right. Personally, how I deal with stress typically comes when it is like homegrown stress. A lot of the times, it's dealt outside of the house, you know, because keeping it in home just creates an entirely different problem. And the school I go to, Clarkson High School, has so many amazing after-school, you know, curricular programs for them, whether it be the track, you know, athletics or the arts. You know, there's different avenues for the kids to alleviate a lot of that stress. And fortunately, I'm a part of the culinary arts program at Clarkson High School, and allowing myself to just kind of, you know, be, you know, like you said, driving yourself into whatever you're focused on. That does alleviate the stress a lot of the times, because then it becomes less of a focus on the stress and more focus on what you enjoy doing, because that's really what gets rid of stress, enjoying what you're doing, being happy, and not just happy, being joyful, enjoying what you're doing. That's the key, I think, to get rid of stress. Just having something that basically brings the best out of you and what makes you the happiest in life, whether it be whatever, any activity. If it makes you happy, the stress will go away eventually.
I think that the grind culture that like the other three teens on the stage have talked about so far kind of has two sides to it. Like, everyone's always going through and not only striving for the 4.0 GPA, but you're also going through and loading yourself with extracurriculars, but you also need to get a part-time job, you also want an internship, and it's like, that's a lot of stuff to be going through and like putting pressure on ourselves. And while, yes, I also go through and try and achieve all those things, and I have a great time doing a lot of it, a lot of times it goes through and it can be too much, to the point where I know that everyone's heard kids in school being like, well, I only slept for 2 hours last night. Well, I only slept for 30 minutes. Like, what are you doing? And it's just like, it gets to a point where it's toxic, and to the point where sometimes you start to like not enjoy those things as much because of how fatigued you become. So I think that while it is important for us to go through and be competitive and strive to reach our goals, we also need to kind of realize that it's important to take care of yourself at the same time. So we need to find that healthy balance, and I don't think we're there quite yet.
Let's give our first panel of teens a hand for the insight, the direction, and opportunity for growth. And I didn't look at my script, so we're going to have you all come back and do the Q&A together. So we'll have the other panel come forward. So let's give them a great hand as they take their seats, they'll come back up. Put some music on, DJ, while I bring up we transition. So Miss Antoinette Tuff will come up, Lydia Quiones, Miss Hill, please come on up. What I'm going to do is, since this is an all-star panel as well, and they have a bios about 20 pages long, I'm going to have them, as I ask the first question, just to introduce yourself and talk about your organization and what you stand for. But the question will be, what we're going to discuss is just talk about the behavioral health resources as it relates to your organization and how people can access it. That's the first question. So we'll start with Ms. Tuff, and we'll go down the line. Just introduce yourself and tell us about what organization, any other things you would like to know, and connect that way. So thank you.
My name is Antoinette Tuff, and I am the young lady who saved the elementary school here in DeKalb County from an AK-47. And I am the proud owner of Kids on the Move for Success. I came back into the school district where the gunman held me hostage and launched my only and one in great literacy program, mentoring program. Come back to be able to have youth around me all day long, from elementary school all the way to college, and then be able to come back and see how can we impact and increase reading scores, math scores. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that we're going to be actually connecting with Commissioner and them and all of those in the community to have an actual summer enrichment program this summer, bringing our kids off of the streets so that they can be able to have, you know, what Grandma used to say, I don't mind bringing about trouble, but they won't be in trouble because they're going to be over there learning how to read and increasing some reading scores this summer. So I'm excited about that, and the way that you can connect with us is AntoinetteTuff.com. And also at kidsonthemoveforsuccess.org. And the other thing that I do is I wanted to come back and not just impact children, but also impact adults. And so I come back and do professional speaking in organizations and in communities. And then I have a book out there that's called Prepared for a Purpose, and a movie where Tony Braxton played me called Faith Under Fire, that's on Lifetime.
So you want me to follow that up?
People trying to get on TV with the water. I'm just here, thanks.
I'm not quite ready. Well, my name is Lydia Quinones. Not as amazing as this woman next to me, but I am trying my best. I work for DeKalb County Office of Youth Services. I head the mental health sphere in our office, which focuses on programming for youth 0 to 24. Some of the programmings that I oversee one is called Growing Healthy Babies, which focuses on growth and development for mothers with children 0 to 5. We teach life skills, we teach prenatal development, as was discussed. We teach cognitive skills and things to look out for. I also manage a program called Project 180, which uses a positive action curriculum for youth in middle school and elementary school, and we've now expanded it to high schools. Girls Clubhouse and Life Prep. Our Girls Clubhouse program is for teen girls, and it uses a curriculum called Girls in Real Life Situations, which focuses on all of the social, emotional, relational things that young ladies face during the high school years. And then the Life Prep program teaches life skills. And so we work with high schoolers and recent graduates to teach financial management, public speaking, everything you need to know to be a grown-up, because being a grown-up is hard, and I don't think we realize that until we become a grown-up. It seems exciting, and then you have to do it, and then you're like, I don't want to play anymore. So we try to teach them everything they need to know in order to want to play a long time and be successful in playing as a grown-up. So thank you for having us. My colleague Musette Hill is here as well, so she'll talk about all of the wonderful things that she's doing.
Thank you, Lydia. I appreciate that introduction. As she expressed, again, my name is Musette Hill, and we are with the Office of Youth Services. My area of focus is homelessness and economic well-being, and the programs that we have under that arena include Baby Box. And Baby Box is basically what it is. It's a box that we provide to new mothers and fathers and upcoming mothers and fathers. And our focus is about sleep safety. DeKalb has one of the highest infant mortality rates as it relates to SIDS, and our office joined in conjunction with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and DeKalb Emory to help combat and fight so that we don't have so many of our babies dying because they don't have a safe sleep space. Another program that we offer is Youth Decoded. How many of you all here like computers? Hands. So we go out into the community and we teach the youth how to code. It's an amazing program. We have several sites that we go to throughout the year and over the summer and after school programs, and we teach the youth how to code. Another program that we offer is the DeKalb Alliance on Youth. And I'm going to put a plug in here. Our next meeting is February the 12th from 12:30 to 2, and it's going to be at the Tucker Library. And anyone who is a member of DeKalb County, whether you have an organization or not, is based for nonprofits, but we do allow community members to come in, and I would love to see some of your faces if you would like to come. Another opportunity that we have, and we partner actually with Chris 180, their program that is for runaway youth, The Spot, and I'm sure that Brittany will talk about that program. Okay, so I don't want to go into that. And then another organization that we partner with also is Clarkson Community Center. And I'm sure you all have heard of the center. It is amazing, and the things that they do for the youth that attend their program after school and during the summer. So that's what we do under our homelessness and economic well-being area.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosalind Hill, and I am with DeKalb County Board of Health. I am actually over the Health Promotion and Prevention Office there under Health Assessment and Promotion. And a lot of the focuses of my office is to do injury prevention. And so we do a lot of education and outreach. Some of the education classes that we actually have car seat classes and booster seat classes. A lot of times we do car seat safety classes and car seat checks. And although I'm the mom of 3 girls Once I went through my certification, I realized that I was installing car seats incorrectly. Most people are about 95%. So you can actually come to us. We can get your car seat checked to make sure that the children are in the car safely. In addition to that, we also do pedestrian safety. We found that there were specific corridors around DeKalb County where more pedestrians were dying, i.e. Memorial Drive, Covington Highway. You guys are familiar with some of these places. And we strategically made an outreach effort to start educating people about being more conscious and aware of drivers and pedestrians, that is. We also do youth violence prevention. We work directly with DeKalb County Juvenile Court, where we go in and work with what we call justice-involved youth. They've gotten in trouble. And in the midst of that, what we try to do is bring in mentorship and coaching and classes that are open up to the parents as well, so that they know that there are other opportunities and we're not giving up on them. So we also focus on mental health education. We do classes around first aid mental health. We do a couple of those classes each year. As a matter of fact, we will have one coming up on youth first aid mental health. Those classes are free. And so if you are interested, I actually have some sign-up sheets up here. Feel free to come put your information there. We would love to connect with you, partner with you. And moving forward, we also want to do looking to do some opioid and substance abuse prevention education throughout the county. So.
Tough lineup to follow and to go last, but I'm really happy to be here, everybody. My name is Brittany Walters, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and the clinical director at a behavioral health organization called Chris 180. And if you've been around Atlanta for a while, you might have heard of us. We were previously known as Chris Kids, but have since changed our name because we no longer serve just kids, and we have an array of services for people of all ages. So keeping it short and sweet, I will tell you at the crux and epicenter of everything that we do is behavioral health outpatient treatments. We have 9 different centers across Metro Atlanta in Fulton and DeKalb counties. We also recognize that it's really hard for caregivers to get kids to appointments. Sometimes they have to take off work, it interferes with their work schedule, they're getting in trouble, so they end up either getting in trouble with their employer or not being able to access the resources. So I'm proud to say we've grown our school-based mental health program to 42 schools across Metro Atlanta. It seems like we might need to reach out to some of the schools that were previously mentioned, but those provide, that program provides on-site mental health counseling and skill building with a behavior specialist. We also have an outreach and community housing department, transitional living program for homeless young adults 17 to 24, aging out of DFACS custody. We have 8 group homes, a training institute, a substance abuse intensive outpatient program, and a partridge in a pear tree. I'm missing about, probably like 25 other programs, but if we can't help you, we'll point you in the right direction, and we're really happy to be here.
All right. As you see, we have an array of services and organizations who have experience and who understands a lot of the issues that are faced. One of the questions I would like to ask is, how do you know if you're having a problem with a child, how do you know it's a serious problem? As a parent, sometimes a child may be withdrawn or may be quiet or happy or just in between. How do we know when it's serious? Can you help the parents and audience or caregivers and audience? Let me start with you, Chris Kids, and work our way down.
Well, what I can say, I do a lot of training across the state for police officers and first responders, and this is a common question. How do we help our caregivers know if this is just a phase, is this just an issue, do they need to just toughen up and deal with it? And what I'll say is, all of the things that we've mentioned today, stress, anxiety, depression, irritability, agitation, frustration, all of those things are totally normal, and I'd be more concerned if somebody in this room told me they'd never experienced those things. And so the way that we qualify a disorder or something that is diagnosable, per se, is when it starts to interfere with somebody's daily living. So if I'm so anxious in the morning that I can't get out of bed to get to school, or if I'm so anxious about driving on the highway that I'm late to school or work, I might have an anxiety disorder. If I'm so depressed that I can't get out of bed to feed my child, feed my dog, get to work or go to school, you might have a depressive disorder. So the way that you know it's serious is, of course, paying attention and being attuned to your child and any changes in personality, but also paying attention to how that changes with environmental changes. Is it just during testing time? That might tell you something. Is it when they're just in school and not over the summer? Starting to kind of pay attention to those things can really help caregivers clue in to the seriousness.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Honestly, I believe that we have to be okay with having real conversations with our children. They are exposed to things that we were not exposed to growing up, and I think we have to really open up the opportunity for them to come and talk to us about anything, parents. I'm the mom of teenagers, and the conversation I've had with my daughters was that I'd rather you come and have the conversation with me, because if you don't, that's when you're going to get in trouble. I'd rather you come to me so that I can help you navigate that, because how many of us in here were once teenagers? Raise your hand. Okay, and so you knew where you were at that time. I always think, if I had someone to be an advocate for me when I was a teenager, what would that look like? So I tried to be that for my daughters, and oftentimes, sometimes teenagers, as you know, if you've raised teenagers, sometimes they can become disconnected. There may be some other things happening. They may not feel comfortable with coming to you, but I think it's also important to put people around them that they do feel comfortable going to. So I think creating that support network is really important for them.
For me, because I am a mother of a preteen, she's 11 years old, and I think back to when I was growing up, my parents had me later on in life, so a lot of the things, when I was her age, I didn't go to my mother to talk about. So as her mother, I set out to make sure that my daughter feels so comfortable talking to me about things. Now, I must admit, with her being in the 6th grade in middle school, and some of the things that has happened to her, I'm shocked that it's happening so young. At first, it was just the homework they were getting. I was sitting, I'm like, I didn't do this in middle school. I didn't do this in elementary school. But then to add on the additional stressors, the teens that were up here earlier, they spoke a lot about social media and cyberbullying, and it is so real. I probably shelter my daughter a little too much, but I don't even allow her access to social media because I just have seen and heard the things that they've done to the youth. So as a parent, just speaking from a parent, in addition to the background experience that I have, talk to your children. Make them feel comfortable. Make them know that, they may get in trouble and they may not, but they have to trust you in order to talk to you.
And I think the other part, just to piggyback off what the other ladies have already said, is to also talk to the people that are around your children, because a lot of times, as was previously stated, your child may not feel comfortable speaking to you, but they may have friends or their friends' parents or a coach or a friend in the school, a teacher, someone who they are comfortable speaking to. And so that person may get the real raw emotion of what the child is going through, whereas the child may try and be protective of you as a parent and not be as honest about their experiences. So we have to, as adults who care about kids, is make sure we build community around the kids that we care about, so that if I'm not who you can talk to, there is someone that I know who is willing to talk to you, and that person is also willing to have the conversation with me, because it's important that that comes full circle. In addition, I think, as Rosalind stated, we can't take for granted a child's ability to handle stress. A lot of times adults are like, well, toughen up, it's okay. When I was a kid, I had to walk through the snow in 3-inch heels, and it was 6 feet tall, and we had to shovel. Well, that's good for you, and it built you very nice and strong, but this teen that you see today may be going through some really difficult stuff. And while it wasn't a challenge for you, we don't know how this child knows how to cope with it. Because if you didn't teach them the coping mechanisms that they needed, you can't expect them to exercise them when stress comes along. So I think it's really important that we do that as parents or as adults, and then look for some of the physical expressions of dealing with stress or being in really serious mental health issues, because a lot of teens nowadays are cutting more than we did, are hurting themselves more than we did, and so we have to be very vigilant as adults to make sure that we don't take for granted paying attention to the little things that our kids may be doing around us, and then inquiring, having these space where the kids do trust you and you're someone they can come and talk to, and don't be scared to ask the question, because we think it's just the kids that are uncomfortable, but the adults are equally as uncomfortable. Because if you say you're cutting yourself, what do I do next? And so we have to, as adults, inform ourselves about the social environments that the youth face today, and then how do we have conversations in a way that is relative to the languages that they are speaking. So you got to get a little hip, parents. You got to learn the lingo. You got to, stay with the times, listen to the music, figure out what that stuff means, Google a word or two, so that when you're there, you can have the conversation and understand it, because they may be saying something that means they're hurt and that means something's wrong, and you're just like, oh, great, yeah, that sounds amazing. And they're like, you have no idea what's happening with me. So I think it's just important as adults we remember to be young if there are young people around us, so that we know what they're speaking when they do come and talk to us.
I'm going to take it a little swing on it for a second, if y'all can bear with me. And all the answers were great, but I want to take it to the part of what we do now in my literacy program and in my programs that I did, and the reason why I started those programs, and that's the listening skills. We got to stop as parents and listen. Don't always be so quick to respond or have an answer for everything that they say. And one of the things, a few of the things that we do in my programs is we do tough tactics. And I learned that from being held hostage, and that's compassion, confidence, and control. And how do you use those with your children to know and allow them to be able to see that just because Mary's hair may not look the best way that you think it should look today, but Mary did the best she could for what she had. And then how do you come back and be able to have that confidence that you need and being able to show Mary that your hair may not look good today, but at the end of the day, you still look great. So how do we do that and have control of it all? And the way that we do that is to be able to show what we do in our programs. And the reason why I do that is because at the end of the day, if you don't have on listening ears, you're going to miss it. One of the things that I used to always tell my daughter, and her dad used to always get mad, and I always like to say, okay, it's time to have diarrhea of the mouth. She's like, Mama, what? I was like, yeah, I need you to tell me what your day was like all day. From the time you left the house, all the way up to right now that you're here. And so I did that with her and my son their whole life. And so by the time they got to middle and high school, she used to say to me, Mama, okay, it's a diarrhea of the mouth session. I was like, okay, come on, what we gonna have? But it gave me time when, in those spaces, that she knew that I wasn't gonna say nothing, I wasn't gonna judge her. It didn't make any difference what she said, how she said it. That was her safe zone for her to be able to know that at the end of the day, no matter what it looks like for me, no matter what it feels like for me, I can be vulnerable enough to know that you're going to listen to me and not prejudge me in the process of it all.
All right, with that being said, I'm going to ask another question in terms of dealing with crisis. And we're going to start with you, Ms. Tuff. And crisis could be, like for me, crisis was my mom called me May of 2014, and she said, I got cancer. She said, I got stage 4 lung cancer. And I'm sitting at home, and I'm only child. And my mom's in Chicago, I'm here. And so I'm sitting up there, I said, man, she was upbeat and jovial, and she said we could beat this. And then she moved down here with me, and 2 years. We extended her life, went through the therapies, and I found, I read up on it, and we got her life extended for 2 years, but she passed at 66 years of age. And so part of it was, when you're dealing with anybody ever lost a real loved one, you never get over it. It's always constantly part of what you do. And her birthday was January 19th, so every January you start having those same thoughts again and where we are. But a lot of us deal with crisis or different situations. I had to go to grief camp So I went to grief camp with a lot of families who lost loved ones, because you don't want to be in a position where you can see yourself, in public, and you get people that just say crazy stuff, and then you can be one way, and then you get in a situation and be another. But all of us have different ways of support groups to deal with a crisis and stress. I want you all to talk from your perspective on a period of time where you had and how you dealt with it, so the audience can relate to you, and helps them to understand that we all still providers, and we have this strong outer, you know how you have this strong outer presence, but inside you still may be trying to deal with it, because we always got those good answers for other people, but we don't know how to deal with the stuff inside of us. But help us to deal with something like that. You're strong, how do you stay strong and deal with those crises?
Did you really have to start with me on that?
Yeah, because I like how you did it.
Okay, so I don't know why God just chose me in situations. I can relate to, right now we only service homeless foster kids and kids that live in at-risk communities. And the reason why I selected those kids, because I was one of those kids. I was homeless. Me and my mom moved about 14 times in 1 year. I slept in the bottom of the stairwell. I slept outside. So my crisis started young. In that middle of that crisis, I connected with my ex-husband at the age of 13. I was with him for 33 years. We got divorced at 46. So we got divorced in May of 2013. I was already in suicidal moments, tried to commit suicide several times. Went right here on Wesley Chapel. I tell God, he got a funny way of showing it. Right up here by the post office, I parked my car in that post office parking lot, and I walked out in front of a car, and he didn't hit me. I walked out in front of a tractor trailer, and he didn't hit me. But not knowing that 2 days later, God needed me to be able to save over 1,000 lives on August the 20th. So what I will say to you is that your crisis today can be somebody's life-saving moment tomorrow. And then out of all of that, everybody kept saying, oh, Antoinette, you on prime time, you got a book, you got a movie and all that. But at the end of the day, they seen the glory. But behind every glory, I don't care who it is, there's a story. And it becomes, can you survive the story and the process of it all? So what I've done is, everybody that's a part of my organization, any kind of way, I got something that's out there. Stand up for me a second. If y'all sit down, y'all better stand on up yours only and stop playing with me today. I wanted them to stand up was because of this. I surround myself with good people. I surround myself with people that have a heart after God first, and then they got my back. So when I'm in that crisis moment, my friends know that I got 5 minutes to be in it. And they literally time me. So they say, okay, Antoinette, you at 4 minutes and 45 seconds. You got 15 more seconds to get it all out. So at my 59 second, they be like, okay, that's it. Cut it down. But I do that because we all have some kind of crisis in our life. So for me, the last 6 months has been a roller coaster ride. Why? Because my mom died, we didn't expect her to die. She went in the hospital normally and passed away. My niece passed 2 weeks after that. My dad passed 5 months after that. And now I'm on a roller coaster ride again. But guess what that roller coaster ride allows me to see? That I'm at the door knocking. So when I get in those crisis moments, I go back to one of them friends and say, okay, I got a 5 minute, I need 5 minutes. So I say to you all today is that get you some core group people that ain't gonna judge you, that ain't gonna sit back and put your news on CNN and sell it so you can tell it. And have somebody you can talk to be able to say, I ain't in it today. I need somebody to help me walk through this process of it all.
I love it. Thank you.
Didn't expect this question. Let's see. I am a very logical, cognitive sort of person. I process in my mind first, and I think it's by default, also having grown up in very tumultuous environments and experiences with homelessness and other things like that. So at a very young age, I learned as a way of survival to try and analyze the situation, analyze myself, and figure out a safe way out to avoid as much harm either to myself, my siblings, family, whoever was in the room. So for me, in stressful situations, the most recent one that came up as everyone was talking about loss was losing my stepfather. It was a task. We had just spent lots of time thinking he was going to survive and put lots of energy into trying to get his health back, and got the call one Sunday morning serving in church, and my sister called me several times, and she knows I'm at church and not to call me while I'm serving the Lord. But since she did, I was like, something's wrong. And so immediately I was like, it's her biological father. I was like, her dad has passed. And my sister is my heart. I'm not going to cry. For anybody that knows me. You know, somebody touch you when you feel emotional. It's just like, oh my God. And so I had to take a moment, pull myself together, and get on the call with her to console her, because this is her biological father. But in the process, digest the information that I was given and understand what I was going to do and what my emotional reaction was going to be as well. So for me, my approach is usually to try and understand the situation, like what is actually happening here? Like what is the crisis that I'm in? That was twofold. The first was my heart is hurt because my sister is really in pain right now. And she's in California and I'm in Georgia. I can't just go hold her and make her feel like everything's okay. I can't bring her dad back. What do I do with this? My next thing was, I'm also supposed to be doing something. Like I'm in the middle of holding something together, trying to serve. Can I step away and have this moment? What am I supposed to do here? And then not create a distraction for the people who are serving alongside me, because other things still have to happen. Got all of that together, stepped away for a second, got on the phone with my sister, and immediately had to respond to her emotions. Because for her, she's very emotional. And this is her dad. Like, you don't get that back. And she was a daddy's girl. And so we took time, we talked about the emotions, talked about what she was going through. And then I had to live with taking all of her emotions, because I did my best to get her to a state where it was just like, it's not going to be okay, but we're going to make it. You know, you're not alone. And that's what she felt. I'm alone now. And then we came up with solutions. I'm also very, let's fix it, because I don't want to be here long, and I don't want to fight if you be mad too long. So what we got to do? And so we started planning, and we tried to get into action, and I tried to move her mind and her emotions into a different space so that we could at least create some sort of safety. But for me, it took much longer when I got her out of crisis to deal with the impact the crisis had on me. Not having had a close relationship with my biological father, him being the closest thing I had, it was just like, wow, how did that impact me? Am I really hurting? Do I get to respond to this? Because it wasn't my dad, it was her dad. But how do I feel in this? And as the teens talked about, and the doctor talked about, being in a space where you're so used to caring for everyone else, when you get back to yourself, you don't really remember how to do that, or you don't have the energy to do it. And so it was, and still is for me, very important that I get to a space of mindfulness, that I take a second, I just breathe. Just the other day, we were in a conversation, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk away for a second, because I need to understand what I'm really feeling right now, and how I can respond to this. And so I try to, because of how I was brought up, be very adamant about understanding what my emotions are doing in this moment, and then what I'm thinking. Because typically my thoughts are gonna control what I feel, and then it's gonna be, this how we're gonna respond, because my thought said it was okay to feel this way about this situation, so this is what my behavior is gonna look like as a result. And so I walk myself through all of those phases as much as possible. A lot of it is probably because of my background educationally as well, but crisis is hard. And I think as individuals in crisis, even as professionals, we forget to walk ourselves through all of the aspects of ourselves that need to be responded to when we're in crisis. And a lot of times we address the emotion, but then we never come back and address how it affected us cognitively. How has it affected us physically? Are we in a healthy space? Because we talk about mental health and wellness and we forget the wellness. We forget these social, emotional aspects that are also a part of how we come out on the other side of crisis. And I don't think crisis is always meant as a catalyst to destroy us, but sometimes and oftentimes it's a catalyst to make us stronger. And so we have to find the strength in the crisis and what the other side of us having experienced that is supposed to look like, so we have something to fight for and to try to become. So you have a testimony, or you have a story, you have something that this then empowers you to do more and not just be a victim to your experiences. So I'm going to stop right there.
Well, I agree with everything that they just said. But again, I hate that most crises are surrounding with death. And I do not know if that's something that kind of exists among different ethnical backgrounds. For me, as Lydia expressed, my first crisis that I remember feeling really hard was the death of my father. And working in the environment that we work in, and I'm thankful for some of the coworkers that I have, because it's been almost 8 years that my father has passed. But as Commissioner expressed, around that birthday, around the time that they passed, all those raw emotions just come back. And what I have learned to do is you celebrate them how you feel to celebrate them. And really not allow someone to gauge you on how you should address and adjust to different things. Is how you feel the need. If you want to cry, if you want to laugh, if you want to just scroll through pictures. And that's what I have done when I'm dealing with my crisis. I went through a therapist one time and he told me that after you go through the grief process, it should be about 2 years and you should be fine. And I looked at him and I was like, you're not getting any more of my money. Because I did not agree with that. Like, how can you put a timeline on the emotion connection that you had? And especially, that was my daddy. I'm going to celebrate him whenever and however I see fit. I don't care if it's 50 years from now. I will still do that. So, again, to reiterate to your question, Commissioner, you do what you feel is best. It's not for anyone else to make that decision for you. So that's how I would, suggest that you handle your crisis. And also, reach out to people. A lot of our population says, go to church, pray to God. Yes, do that as well. However, God also created professionals for you to go and talk to help you navigate through those topics. So that would be my expression.
Kind of piggybacking on what has already been said, and I too have how many of you in here know that if you live long enough, you're going to go through something, yes? Okay. And so I've been through a lot, but I'm still here, and I'm thankful that that I was able to go through those experiences and not look like the experiences that I went through. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share this quote with you right quick, and it's by one of my favorite authors. Name is Stephen Covey. Familiar? If not, he's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Please look it up. He says, when you really listen to another person from their point of view and reflect back to them that understanding, it's like giving them emotional oxygen. Okay? So the listening skills is really, really important. And really quick, I'm just going to run you guys through a quick exercise. I just want you to take a deep inhale right now. Inhale through your nose, blow it out your mouth. Let's do it again. Inhale, blow it out your mouth. One one time, take a deep inhale, and blow it out your mouth. Sometimes that's all you can do. And in the beginning, when you came out of your mother's womb, that's all you could do. You took your first breath. And by the time we leave this earth, the last thing that we do when we leave this earth is take one last breath. But the impact that you make with the dash between that first breath and that last breath is everything. So you want to take advantage of what happens in the middle of that dash. Repeat after me. Change your thoughts, change your life. Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change your thoughts, change your life.
And then when you write it down, I'm a sticky person, when you write it down on a note on your mirror, what ends up happening is that when you write something down, not necessarily on the tablet or on the computer or on the phone, when you write it down, your mind begins to build a case for it. And so what ends up happening, there is scripture that talks about that. There's a lot of positive sayings that talk about when you speak something, it becomes something. When you have a vision, people with vision will not perish. And so it's very important to write down actionable items. 3, I would say start with your top 3, whatever that is, and watch what happens. Someone will show up to help you with that. If you're in need of some kind of finances, somebody might show up with that. And so again, they say be careful what you say because it actually just might come true. It really does work, okay? In the midst of that, one of the things that I'm really adamant about, and I think oftentimes culturally in our community, we tell little boys to man up.
All right.
Yep. We tell little baby boys to man up. What does that mean? He's a little baby boy. Let our children be children, you know? And so it's important to incorporate those things early, as well as making mental health common. So just as simple as I gave you that little breathing exercises, if you do that before you respond to someone, a lot of times you won't even respond. Or your response may shift. One other thing that I do, I have morning ritual. So I get up, a lot of times I get up before my daughter. It's still dark outside, right? Still hearing the birds chirp. There are things that I do in my morning to get ready for my day. So I may get up, I may pray. Sometimes I just get up and just get quiet, get still. I may get up and meditate. I may get up and read something positive. I don't turn on the news first thing in the morning because it's usually always negative. I usually put on some kind of meditation music or some gospel music or something that's inspirational. Might be dance music. And so I start with that, and that helps me set my day. And so for me, I have incorporated daily habits that help me get off on the right foot. Because how many of you have to get out there and drive on 285 or 20 or 85? You know that can change your mood real quick, right? So make sure you put those rituals in place. And also have one before you go to bed. Okay, so those are some of the things that I do.
Thank you.
Yes, so crisis, I will say I experienced 2 major ones early in life, and I'm still learning how to cope with both of those. So I was 17 when my dad died, and then, so right before I went to college, which was really stressful and scary. And then right after my first semester in graduate school, my mom died, tragically and suddenly. So I was 23 with no parents and still in the thick of pursuing my educational aspirations. And so a lot of people said, well, are you going to take a semester off? How are you possibly going to go back? And I knew that I had to go back because if I didn't, I knew that my mind would go to other places and that, you know, I might exhibit some self-destructive coping mechanisms because, to be totally honest, self-destructive ones are the ones that work. They numb you the most. Many of them, somebody mentioned cutting earlier, and a lot of people don't know that cutting is a highly effective coping mechanism because it operates on the same neural pathway as somebody that does heroin. So people experience euphoria when they trigger that part of the brain. And the reason cutting is addictive is because of that exact chemical kind of reaction in your brain. And so what I was able to do was to go back to school and to focus my energy in ways that were productive. And I had to learn, you hear a lot of negative things about compartmentalizing, but sometimes putting things into a box and having designated times to breathe can be really helpful and keep you safe. So that was helpful. I also really liked, one of the ladies mentioned, do you. So do what makes you feel good in the moment. If you want to sleep, sleep. If you want to journal, journal. If you want to talk about it and cry with your friends, do that. But it's really important to have people in your life that you can do all of those things with that won't judge you for the way that you cope. Because nobody can tell you how to grieve. Nobody can tell you how long it should take. And so just really owning that process can be empowering. For caregivers dealing with youth that might be experiencing a crisis, it's important to ask them what they feel like is helpful. So if they're telling you, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it, offer an alternative like journaling or like writing a song about it. You know, at the spot, Musette mentioned, we have, it stands for Supporting People Overcoming Trouble, and we actually have a rap studio that was donated by NEO. And so a lot of our young people write raps and songs about their traumas and things like that because talk therapy doesn't work for everybody. And so it's important to, if your kid is interested in art or sports or journaling or writing, find a creative writing class. Things like that, can really help them cope with whatever they're going through.
All right. Give them a great hand, a great panel. I kind of threw them a little curveball because it's always easy to give advice, but I wanted you to hear from how they go through it and how they cope with it and how they deal with it, so you know that you're dealing with folks who are real, who have been through something. So I appreciate that. So y'all did well. So I want to call up our teens to come on up, and we're going to get started on our Q&A. If you got questions, you go to mics out there. We need, you can ask a question, so please come on up. Our teen panelists, so they can come on up. Give them a hand. They're trying to give me some more chairs, so hopefully we can get those chairs right quick. But also, while we're doing, I want to thank our dynamic DeKalb County school system. Get a review from the system. I see Dr. Tinley and Tart. I see our teachers. I see, Dr. Morley. That's our school board member. Hey, thank you for coming. So I thank them because they have got us some young people out tonight and parents. We also have a program coming up on the 25th. I'm working with the Grammys, and I got them bringing some artists who have been successful in the field. So if you got young people who want to come out, it'll be the 25th at 6:30. But you're going to know about the record industry. You're going to know about the pitfalls as well. We got to find one more chair. Oh, here we come. Put it right on this end. Don't put all, mix it up. Mix it up. Mix the young folks up in between. Come on up here, Mr. Courtney, come on up here. You're trying to hide. But I want to please you all, if you have a question, we got a few minutes for some questions. I want y'all to ask. Anybody want to ask a question, please come to either mic and either on each aisle. Yes, sir.
Hello there.
Hello.
It's on?
It's on.
Okay. Vaping was kind of not in attention yet. And then we had some vaping diseases and vaping deaths and such, and it really came to the forefront. And I was wondering how the schools are handling vaping as well as regular tobacco products and trying to discourage kids from starting these deadly habits and such.
So you talking about vaping. So anybody want to ask her that from us, since you are in school? How do y'all deal with that?
So vaping is definitely like drooling or whatever. It's definitely a big thing within the teen community. But like one thing I have to say to that, like the school I go to, it's almost very rare for that to happen. I also go to like a majority Black and Hispanic school, so it's different from different environments you go to. But I know at my school it's not as prevalent as it would be at others. So yeah.
Anybody anybody else deal with vaping in their schools or challenge and how it...
So not specifically, I can't speak for the schools and how they're addressing that, but I can speak for a growing body of research around the fact that scare tactics don't work. And so speaking of something similar around, sexually transmitted diseases or infections, when a lot of us were growing up, they showed us these like horrific pictures from Google. But what that did was it perpetuated this idea of, oh, if it doesn't look like that, I don't have a problem. And we know that that's not true. And so I think there's a growing body of research around vaping and tobacco products because they're no longer showing black lungs, which is good. It's more around education and alternative coping mechanisms. So I can't speak to specifics, but hopefully that.
Well, with vaping, there are studies that show that children who are least likely to ever become regular tobacco users, if they start with vaping, will become regular tobacco users. And I think that is really an awful thing that we're looking at. It's a growing menace to not just do the vaping, but also continue on to the regular products. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. Please, you all, you have a question, come on up. Come on up. We got a great panel here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Freeman. I'm a health educator with Grady Teen Clinic. If those of you who don't know, Grady has a teen clinic. I'm the health educator, and our biggest demographic are teens who are uninsured. So the biggest challenge that I have is finding those resources for counseling. We do have patients that, we do assess our patients when they come into the clinic and they ask questions about, in the last 2 weeks, have you felt any forms of depression? Have you trouble sleeping? Talks about eating habits, all those things. And so when I noticed that mental health screener and that they need that additional help that may be out of my scope because I'm not a licensed therapist. I have a counseling background, but not a licensed therapist. I'm having a very difficult time finding programs that will support uninsured patients. Some of our patients don't even have primary care doctors. So we are their primary care doctor, and we're like a family planning clinic. So they come for services just to, check their genitals, but they're not checking for their mental health, and we don't have that. We used to have that source at Grady. We used to have an adolescent counseling program, but due to funding, that was cut. So now we have a huge challenge of finding sources that can help our teens that are uninsured. So do you have any, I know I did talk to someone outside. Chris Kids, Chris 180, you guys are our go-to a lot of the times. But like I said, some of our teens that turn 18 and 19, they're cut off from Medicaid, or their parents didn't renew it, or they just don't have any resources to get the services that they need. And yes, Grady does have a behavioral health program, but it's for 18 and up. So we have a huge gap of young people who don't have the help. So do you have any guidance in that area?
I'm glad you told me. I'm going to get on that in the morning. All right. Please help us.
Please keep coming to Chris 180. I'm very happy to hear that because we will not turn anybody away. And so one of our initiatives is to continue to go after funding that will support our ability to serve people that need it most. And often that is uninsured kids, teenagers, young adults, and families. And so we do that in our school-based mental health programs. We also have a sliding fee scale that is very reasonable, and even if somebody can't pay the sliding fee scale and has no income, we will still serve them and work out something with them, even if they pay $4 toward their service. That might cost $25 for the day. So that's exciting, and then also I'll say our Fulton County, I know we're in DeKalb County, but for those folks that might have people that live in Fulton County close to them, all of our Fulton County sites can serve uninsured adults. And there's information out in the lobby about those programs.
We also have Community Service Board. We're the service board for Wave Your Hand. That's a service that helps out with mental health as well. So they're here. We go to this side. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael Tanner. I'm a clinician at an agency called Wellspring Living. We work closely with Chris 180. I operate as a clinician for a couple of DeKalb County schools, but my main site is typically at Alonzo Crim High School, which was now the Phoenix Academy, and Forest Hill. So my question is for actually the entire panel, both young teens and adults. So in my experience, it's been, I've been practicing now for about 5 years, and in my experience, the young adults that I work with, one of their biggest concerns is that they know they suffer with some sort of mental health illness or disease, whatever the case is, and they reach out for these resources, like you were saying. Sometimes they're not available, sometimes that they are available, but they're met with a large force of resistance from their parent or their guardian, regardless of whatever the case may be. So part of it is they know they need these services, but they're not necessarily being met with a caregiver or guardian who seems to care for whatever reason, or they're not able to provide those resources for them. So my struggle becomes allocating those resources, finding the free ones, of course. We reach out to Chris 180, we reach out to Family Ties, another one that does psychiatric evaluations, but sometimes just because there's not enough numbers, they're not able to come out to them, or they're out of district, they're out of network, they don't have Medicaid, the list goes on. So my question for all of you all is, what have you found to be most useful when speaking to the most resilient guardians who do not allow for their students to access mental health services due to their availability, their affordability, preconceived notions they may have about the mental health field in general, or any type of negative stigma, especially in the African American community? How do you address those adults that have their minds made up about, oh, you're not going to receive therapy because therapy means you're crazy, therapy means you're not believing in the Lord, therapy means that X, Y, and Z under the sun? So how do you deal with those?
Great. So everybody take 1 minute on that one. Yes.
I can, we're at DeKalb County Board of Health. Most of our services are either free or low cost or sliding scale. But directly to your question, I think education is really, really important here, because from a traditional standpoint, we don't talk about mental health. As a matter of fact, we call people crazy. You know what I mean? We have to really make I call it mental wellness, common, and make it okay to get help and get understanding. But the course that I was talking about, the First Aid Mental Health course, it's free, you all. And we are actually going to do a couple of rounds of youth, where there's an adult one, adult First Aid Mental Health. There's also a youth First Aid Mental Health. So the first one coming up this spring will be Youth First Aid Mental Health. Again, if you guys want that information, please come sign on this list, and I will get that information out to you. But education is everything. Because I think what happens around support is they just don't know. You know what I mean? And if you don't know, and if you haven't been taught, and you've been told that something is wrong with you, that parent may have some mental illness. And so you've been taught that, not to share that with someone, or you did share it and then you were shut down, and you were told to go sit down somewhere, child, or pray about it. You know what I mean? So we have to break those walls down, but education is huge, and creating a support network.
Thank you.
Don't give up, because
Talk in the mic because you're on TV.
things that you are trying to get to that youth that's asking for service, they're going home with it.
Yeah.
And if the home is not supportive of it, it's going to be a constant start over every single day. So just don't give up on that parent. They may not be with you or able to meet you right then and there, but just keep doing it because they need you.
That's right. Great.
That's what I was going to say. One of the things that I do in my program, and we start early, I start in elementary, because a lot of times what we do is we think that it starts in middle school and high school, because I know I did it before I got into elementary school. But what we do is I incorporate my parents. So I pull my parents aside. So 9 times out of 10, majority of the time, the student has come to us or have displayed some type of behavior in it. And so then what I do is I pull the parent aside and then have a conversation with the parent, because I've already had one with the child. And then I pull them all together and have I call a family meeting. And so then we come back and we get to the meat of it and what that looks like. And it depends upon how deep it may go down. Then I'll bring in the counselor, I'll bring in the administrative staff. And what I do is I try to, you heard when your grandmama used to say it takes a village to raise one child? So I create that village model for my families. And so when you see families and things like that with me, they've been with me since they were in kindergarten all the way up to now. Half of them are going to college and all of that. So the reason why we do that is because we build that village mentality. And so when one hurts, we all hurt. And so what we do is we come in and we love on each other and we support them. So when you come in, you won't never know that Mary was dealing with mental illness, because we don't allow everybody to see it or judge it. And so what I would say to you is that when you see it and you're in those schools and you're trying to figure out those resources, just like she said, don't give up number one. But the other thing is continuously be persistent in it and reach out to nonprofits like me and and see what they're doing in the community. That you may not be able to connect them here, but the dot may go over here that you can connect all the dots to make a circle in a family.
Here's some of our teens. Come on.
I also wanted to add, I used to be a teen. I also wanted to add, look for social programs because our office focuses on a lot of mental health awareness and mental health programming and providing those sorts of opportunities, but we do it in a way that is teen and youth and adolescent friendly. And a lot of times parents will take to programs like that because it seems less counseling-ish in the traditional sense. It's also free. We provide transportation. We'll make sure that the child is fed. But at the end, we're using psychologically based curriculum that provides the social environments and the counseling environments with trained professionals and facilitators, as well as their peers, to help talk them through the things that are happening. And you'll find in our conversations with the parents a lot of time at pickup and drop off, they're just as concerned. They just didn't know that the opportunities were available and that their child would actually participate. So what we've learned through programming is if you create an environment for youth where you feel comfortable and it feels safe to share and be a part of, they'll talk to you and never want to leave. And that's literally what we run into. And so I think if you want to connect with our office a little more, I know you've talked to Musette, but we have a ton of social, emotional, environmental programs that focus on creating environments for youth, by youth, with youth that take into mind their mental health and their wellness. And so the parents take to it and they love it. And if their kids keep saying, I want to keep going and you gonna feed them and it's free and y'all get to go explore DeKalb, what time you want them? You want them tomorrow too? Okay. Can they spend the night? Yeah. So just look for untraditional methods to deliver traditional and powerful services.
Great. All right.
Nope.
Anybody else before we go to the next one? All right. Yes. Let's give a hand. Great.
I'm just pulling this up a little bit so I don't have to go down. But I'm Kenneth Goodwin. I'm one of the pastors at Bethel Freeway Baptist Church over in the 2nd Avenue in Decatur. And I just want to ask a question. We was just talking about the traumas and the crisis times that we experience. Right now in our country, and I believe even in the world, there's a great trauma going on with the death of Kobe and all those that died in that helicopter. This is touching our youth. This is touching our adults. Are you looking at people who they considered heroes crying? You're looking at Shaq breaking down on television. And so this is a time that's bringing to our face. It is making us look at our mortality. It's making us look at death. It's making us look at, we're not promised tomorrow. So do we talk to our teens? Do we just because the news media is bombarding them, the social media is bombarding them, and it's making them face these things. So my question is, so how do we as parents and teachers, and do we just don't talk about it to them or let them handle it on their own? But they are facing it. They have no choice because the media is pushing it at them. And this is a very tragic thing that has happened, but it puts a lot of questions right before us. It put a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions right before us. And that's with our elementary all up. So just let me know, do we talk to our children or do we just assume? Okay.
Absolutely. They need to be talked to. You need to ask them how they're feeling, how they're processing these things, what type of emotion this is bringing up for them, what their thoughts are now, where is their head, what's going on in their friend groups, how are their friends processing this, what does this mean for them? If they one day aspire to be like Kobe, do you still have those aspirations. Like, how are things shifting for you internally and externally? And then what can I do as an adult who cares about you to help you process this in a way that's relevant and applicable to where you are?
And I would just add, to go back to what the young man was talking about earlier, this is a way that we can connect. In our office, our ages range, so it's crazy how our ages range and the conversations that we're able to have. And we actually just talked about this just yesterday. And one of our team members, she's almost 20 years younger than us. And I explained to her, Kobe was like our superhero. Like, you can go into the league and you're 17. Like, it was real for us. So a lot of people connected with him, but a lot of the younger generation connect with him as well, because he's a superstar to him. They see him on NBA Live. Is that the name of the game that y'all play? Or whatever it is. 2K, yeah. Okay, see, I'm with it a little bit. But use that as an opportunity to bridge more conversation, because now you can relate to someone.
Great. And just to say one more thing, and the effects of those families being torn apart.
Yes.
And we have to look at those things and process all of that. And so I'm just thinking of how important it is for us to communicate in those things.
I was just going to add, death is a really scary thing, especially for teens to start to grapple with, because you guys are Superman. You know, like, teens have this complex when they're developing in their brains that bad things can't happen to me. And so when they're faced with mortality and death and these real conversations, that can be a pretty scary time. But it is a time to connect, and especially right now when our country seems very divided, very often, this can be a time to reflect back to your kids and the kids in your life that we need to be mindful, we need to be grateful, we need to be present and in the moment. And, you know, COVID is somebody that impacted so many different lives, and people of all ages, races, ethnicities, backgrounds, everybody is grieving. And so it can be a time to really drive that home, that we are more similar, even though we might not vote for the same person, or, you know, bad things are happening.
Great. I've got our teens. I want to make sure we hear from them, please. I don't know which side I'm on. I don't know what side. You come on. That's fine.
Yeah. I have a question. What if, okay, I know you deal with a lot of teenagers. What if the person that you are wanting to get help for is over the age of 18? And then that person doesn't understand, like, you may see a mental issue, see them going in the wrong direction, you might see some mental setbacks, but they don't agree, and they don't see what you see, and they're not willing. You know, once you're over 18, you can't force them to go to counseling to get the help. How do you deal with encouraging a child or helping them to understand that they do need help, and they need to pursue it when you can't force them? How do you do that?
I would say, when I was held hostage, everybody, when it was all going forward, everybody kept saying to me that I had PTSD, right? And I had never experienced any mental challenges in my entire life. Yes, when I was going through my divorce and all of that, wanted to commit suicide. So when all of that stuff started unfolding for me, people kept saying to me, well, you know, there was, you know, you had this or you had that, right? But for me, it was hard to adjust to that or accept it. What allowed me to accept it was the love that people showed me. They never gave up on me. And so what I would say to you as a parent, or any parents here, is never give up. Always love them through it. And so what made me go to, and I heard somebody say this earlier, it made me go get me some sofa time. I sat on the sofa. I'm like, okay, I got something, because something ain't right. Because then when they started telling me that these are some of your triggers, right? And I'm like, what's a trigger? I ain't had no trigger. I was a mama, a wife. Okay, I was up 4 o'clock every morning on the prayer line. I ain't what that mean. I was fixing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There ain't no trigger. That was me just working too hard. But what I had to realize in the midst of it, it was a trigger for me, because I could no longer function in those capacities anymore. So what I would say to you is that love them through it. Allow them to be able to see that no matter how much you tell me no, No matter how much you don't want to hear, I'm going to sit right here and love you through it, and ain't nothing you can do about it. And then that's what's going to get them to soften up, to be able to say, oh, okay, mommy, oh, that might be all right, okay. And don't talk at them. You know, what helped me through it, people didn't talk at me. They was like, well, Antoinette, you know, I noticed this today. Oh, that may be a little something. I was like, oh, that may be a little something. But it wasn't until they start giving me the signs that I realized that they were signs. But in the beginning, I didn't understand what all that was. So I would say to you is to walk them through the process of it. And it may be that, you know, you connect with Mary over here or Sue over here. Or if your son, maybe it's, you know, maybe you connect them with Joe or connect them with one of the youth. Because that you can be able to reach them where you can. And what you do is you may come back and talk and say, well, you know, he's having this and it may be one of his best friends. But hearing it from my best friend gonna be different than hearing it from my mama, even though you just said the same thing. So just walk them through it and get your, as I said, you got to go back and get that village. It's gonna help you raise them babies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. Yes, sir.
So I just had a question. There was a program about 4 or 5 years ago in DeKalb County Public Schools. It was student engagement coaches. And I thought it was really successful. There was at least 4 engagement coaches at every school, I mean elementary, middle school. And for some reason, it got underfunded and it went away. And I'm not entirely sure why it went away or when it will come back. But it was an opportunity for the teacher to just focus on teaching. And if a student had behavioral problems, that person could pull them to the side, have that one-on-one conversation, talk to the parent, and focus on the behavioral aspect while the teacher focused on the education. And I just couldn't understand because DeKalb was one of the only school systems I had ever heard having it. And I just don't know what happened to it, so I want to know if you guys know.
I got Dr. Tinsley get up. She's a superintendent. She can answer that question.
Thank you. Actually, I appreciate you saying that because they are still in our schools. We have about 15 of them now, but we've changed our focus under a previous superintendent to place them in the elementary schools so that we could book in. We have some things going on in the high school, so we wanted to put those persons in the elementary school to focus on some of those mental health concerns, behavioral issues, attendance, things of those sort that keep our students from being successful at that level. So thank you. I will definitely go back and share that. Maybe that means we need more.
That's right. All right. I have a panelist have a response. Yes.
So I'm in this program that's like the Holistic Stress Control Institute, and it really helps a lot. Because the neighborhood I was in, a lot of people was doing bad things, and some people turned their life around because what we do is we go out and talk to people about how to manage stress and the prevention of doing anything with anger for stress. And we also do like short films based on young girls, STDs, and all that in stress. And we do deep breathing activities, Qigong activities, and aromatherapy.
All right. Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Deontay. I attend Manor High School, RCC. But I mostly wanted to do a flashback on when y'all was talking about going back on how to deal with crisis. And the newer age music today is from what y'all, it's not really, when y'all words, y'all say it don't really talk about that. And I always say that, yeah, that's because this our generation of music. But my main question is, I got a teacher, his name is Mr. Williams, and I was talking to him the other day, and he was like, he said, every time I see you, you always got the headphones in, like you always got headphones in, like this music, to this day and age can ruin your mind. And I was trying to tell him, like, it's not more so of more people like me who like music or who love music every day. That's what they use to, to compose with their problems they go through on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So my question to you all is, what do y'all think that Like, do y'all think the music today has an impact on us? And why is that? Also,
Great question. All right. Who want to answer?
For me, I do think it had an impact on me. I mean, the things that I did, the places that I went, the access that I wanted to have. And again, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and the music that she listens to, it brings out questions that she wants to do certain things because she may have heard it. However, I'm encouraging you to continue to use that coping. I remember when I was in college, I would have my radio right in front of me listening to music as I was studying. And when I got ready to take that test, I would hum that song and I would ace that test because I was studying at the same time. I just think sometimes the disconnect comes when we as adults think that you're not listening to us because you got your headphones on. And just put the phone down, listen to me, give me eye contact, because that's how we were raised. But again, if we do, as everybody on this panel has said, we communicate more and listen more and not talk at, but talk with, what we can accomplish together will be enormous. So again, I'm encouraging you to continue. As long as you're not causing a disruption, there's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion.
I want to add to that. I think music is healing. And art and healing and music go hand in hand. Here is my challenge for you, because I'm going to put it back to you. I think music is a wonderful thing. I've actually grew up playing the piano and the violin. I think we need to put art back into schools, honestly. What's your story? No, I'm not asking you to ask that. I don't want you to answer that. We can talk. But what's your music? Understand?
So you have somebody else's music in there, but maybe you should be making the beats.
actually, I am.
Yes. So we want to hear about your story. And so to me, the same way that you're listening to someone else's story, we want to hear what that is, because you have a story. So you have the ability and the influence and create whatever story that you want to make. So that's what I'm looking for, your story.
Okay. Well, that was great, so don't you go nowhere, because that's segueing into what I'm about to say. So I want you to take what she just asked you, that question is, what's your beats and what's your story? And I want you to come over to my program and teach it to my baby so that they can know how to do that. Because you can't go back, you can't go and hold it to yourself if you know that you have some talent on the inside. What we have to do is spread that talent. So when your teacher is saying that to you, why you're listening to it all the time, because he doesn't know that you're listening to it for the beats. He doesn't know that you're listening to it to write your own lyrics. All he does is see you with the music in your ear. So what you do is come back and allow your success to speak for you. And I'm going to give you that platform to do.
All right. Next.
Really quickly, if you want to put your music over a beat for free with professionals that want to help you, come talk to us. We have a program called Sights and Sounds, which actually teaches kids how to develop beats, develop music, write lyrics, and you record your song at the end of the program. And it's free.
I like that. Yes, sir. Right here. Yes.
My name is Avery Hammond. Also, I attend McNair High School. I'm 17. I'm in the Air Force Junior All-TC program. My question is really to everybody. Do you feel that putting your kids, or if you guys, teenagers, being inside extracurriculum activities, is it adding more stress or is it helping diffuse the stress?
That's good.
Yeah, so this is like something I definitely deal with in high school. When you're doing extracurricular activities, I feel like they have to be purposeful. A lot of people do it because, teachers and parents are like, oh, you need to be involved and stuff like that, but you need to make sure what you're involved in you like doing, and you're not just putting yourself into stuff that's just adding all this stress and adding all this stuff on you and you don't even want to do it. It's so important that when you're doing extracurricular activities, even if it's just one, if it's one thing that you really like, you're going to be good at it. But if it's a bunch of things that you just aren't into it, it's just going to be a bunch of stress that's unnecessary for you. So that's what I have to say about that.
I like that. Emma?
Yeah, I could not agree with Jabari more. Like, doing extracurriculars to do extracurriculars is only going to make you unhappy. My freshman year, I joined math team. I hate math. I was just doing that to put it on my college resume, and I dropped it the exact same year because it was terrible. But after freshman year, I went and I found Vox, which is the reason I'm here now, and that is just like my favorite thing in the universe. I like throw myself into it wholeheartedly. It's kept me really busy. It's given me so many different opportunities, and while it is a huge like time investment, the benefit is worth so much more. So really you just need to find what you actually care about and what you're actually passionate about, and that's what's going to help you. But if you're just doing extracurriculars to like put it down on a piece of paper, then you're not doing the right ones.
All right. And I'm going to say this to you, is that an idle mind bring about trouble, right? But if you do what you enjoy doing and you dream about doing it, then you would do it whether you get paid or not paid. And no matter what it looks like for you, it's going to bring you joy in the end. And so I would say you don't look at, I'm going to put these extra curriculum things on your list, because that's not what we do as parents. We look at your idle mind, going to bring about some trouble in my household, so I'm going to give you some extra curriculums to do. But if you come back to me as a parent and be able to say, Mommy, I have a dream to write my own songs, I have a dream to be a producer or whatever, then as a mom, I'm going to make sure that I line you up with those dreams. So when you're doing it, don't look at extracurricular things. Say, what can I do if I have my eyes closed and I would do it without even getting paid for it? That's what you connect to. That's your purpose.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm just going to take this out. I'm pretty tall. Good evening. I am Chaplain Fanta Sullivan. And my question, I'm going to go straight to it because I know that we are pressed for time, but it's just so much energy here. You guys are doing a great job. I appreciate you and everything that you have fed into me tonight. I am a Georgia State chaplain, and we all know that spirituality has been taken out of the schools. It's been taken out of the schools. It's not there. It's not there for them. No one's praying within the schools unless it is a Christian-based or Muslim-based school or whatever the religion is, unless it's based on that. So my question is, how do we implement into the students that don't have the Christian-based or the spiritual-based counseling to them? How do we get it to them? Because we are here. And we're having a hard time getting that student that want to know about Christ, or that student that want to be baptized, or what about the student who lost the lineage of the Christian history and they're just lost? What about the student that is not cool because nobody else is doing it, but I really want to know? And we are here to offer the spiritual counseling, like a lot of things that you guys have talked about. We're trained in the brief debriefing, the grief cycle, depression, PTSD, and mainly suicide, especially when it comes to the youth. How do we get in if they want it? A lot of them are hungry.
All right. We'll have one person please answer. Chris 180?
Oh, okay.
Or somebody got it? Okay.
I think building relationships is everything. And I think you have to build that trust, and get in that school and volunteer and build those relationships, because I really believe that's where it starts.
All right. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, sir. So my name is Jamari Anderson. I also attend Magna High School, Air Force Junior ROTC program. And my question for you guys is, even for the older, how do you deal with stress? Because I have a lot of stress that I go through. Like I'm the man of the house, but also I have to deal with school, then track, then basketball, then ROTC. And it's a repeating process, but I'm trying to figure out how to prioritize. And I can't quite figure it out yet because I'm growing and I'm maturing. So, for the adults, how do you guys prioritize with your life, with the bills and the children and, and everything else? How do you guys do it?
All right.
How much time do you have? I'll just say, keeping it short and sweet, sweetie, you got to find your outlet, and you got to find what works for you. For some people, it's talking. For some people, it's exercising. For some people, it's writing. For some people, it's music. The best way to find out is to try a bunch of different things and see what feels best. And if you want some more information, we can talk afterward. And there's a lot of, different coping mechanisms that you can try out. And a lot of really good ideas and creative ideas when you Google it. You know, I sent an article to my therapist the other day that it was like 50 coping strategies for kids, and the subject was sometimes we just overthink it, you know, because we get caught up in like the trauma, these deep-rooted things, and sometimes it is deep, and sometimes it's not that deep, and there's some really easy strategies that you can really implement into your daily routine to help.
I'm gonna say this to you, just be honest with you. We fake it till we make it, baby. Okay? Because half time we don't know either. So we don't know how to juggle the balls. We don't know which one to throw up sometimes. We just throw it up and hope it's gonna land on the right spot at the right time. So I would say to you, whatever it is that you're doing, it's gotta be working because you're standing here looking mighty handsome tonight, so keep doing what you're doing.
All right, next speaker. Yes, sir. All the way from Gwinnett.
Right. Nah, but how do y'all think, as I say it's a plague, a gang culture amongst young black men, especially ones who get involved in the court system. So, and you said that you like the head of DeKalb County Juvenile. How do y'all feel like tackling that problem amongst young black people? The gang culture. Yeah.
Definitely not here with DeKalb. No, we work directly with DeKalb County Juvenile Court for justice-involved youth. I'm gonna tell you, sometimes it is challenging, but when we go in, what I do is a lot of what we're doing here. We create a forum for young people to express themselves without judgment. Okay, we allow for you to come in. Sometimes the parents come. Sometimes you come by yourself. Sometimes the parents are outside. But not just that. What I try to do, not just provide you information and education. I also listen to find out what are your needs. And we brought in Office of Youth Services to assist us. We bring in people that may have job opportunities and career opportunities, because a lot of times that gang culture is about them wanting to belong somewhere or to something. And so we try to really get an understanding of what their needs are and meet them there. You know, and we won't win all of them, you know what I mean? But we try to make sure that there's an opportunity for you to come and feel comfortable and ask. So if there's something that you need, a lot of times it's not just you. It may be a grandmother. You know, there may be needs. Your parents may have some other needs. So we try to listen to the other needs of not just the youth, but the entire family to see how we can support you there.
And I'll say quickly, one of the things that we've tried to do, because the research is telling us that the biggest correlation between somebody joining a gang in high school is related to the amount of out-of-school suspensions that they have. And so school performance and academics is directly tied to whether or not somebody is likely to join a gang. And the reason for that is when somebody is given an out-of-school suspension, mom and dad might be at work. And that is a gang's prime time to target adolescents, because when adolescents commit the crime and get caught, what happens? They go to juvenile court, and the adults in the gang can avoid the charges. And so they specifically are targeting middle and high school students to commit these crimes at a lower level to avoid the ramifications if an adult were to rob somebody or burglarize a store. And so what we've done on the west side, which is not in DeKalb County, and we're trying to bring some similar programming to DeKalb, which is exciting, but we've created alternatives to out-of-school suspension by partnering with the schools in the zone over in the Bluffs, which is the highest amount of gang and youth violence. And so what that does is when the school has an out-of-school suspension for those students, they contact our At Promise Center, because we believe kids are at promise, not at risk. And instead of serving their out-of-school suspension, missing out on their work, falling even more behind in some cases in classes, they go to the At Promise Center and can finish their work, and then we advocate for them to get back in the classroom. Sometimes they'll even expel the student, and so instead of wasting 3 months out of school and then having to do summer classes, they can come to the At Promise Center all day long, do their coursework, and then over the summer work on credit recovery so that they don't fall behind.
I like that. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Really quickly, so my name is Stephanie Johnson. I work with the Lee Thompson Young Foundation, and my first question may take a little long, so just real quick. Some of you have mentioned that you've been through therapy before. I wanted to know, how did you seek therapy? What was your mechanism for navigating to access the therapist? What were some of the things that you found helpful and things that are not so helpful about finding the therapist that fit you? And then there was a lady who left who asked a question about how do you help someone who doesn't see that they need help? And I just want to offer, there's a really, really great book written by Dr. Amador called I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help. It's an excellent resource for helping people who may be having something that is a clinically diagnosable disorder, or even kind of early stages of something that helps break down the communication style of how to, it's an actual method to use to engage people in talking about building trust, building rapport, just to get to the point of accessing the care. So again, the book is called I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, and it's on Amazon. So
I like that. Great. All right. Anybody on the panel would like to answer?
Well, for me, my husband and I went through therapy. In the midst of us going through the therapy, we touched on some individual topics, and grief was one of the topics. Deciding if he was the right one or not after he made that statement, I was a little taken back. But I allowed my husband to pick the therapist because I wanted him to be invested in it. And I didn't want him to say, oh, you just pick somebody you knew and they're going to be on your side. So that's what I decided to do to make sure that he was going to be just invested in the process as I was. The one thing I would like to also add, the state of Georgia got this part right. They understood that there was a break in services for 18 to 24-year-olds. Our office even goes up to the age of 24 to provide services for those youth because you're right, they age out of foster care, they get become adults, and they get dropped off their parents' insurance. That was one of the most frightening things when I graduated from college. A month after, it might have been a month, it might have been a week, I got a letter from my parents' insurance that I was no longer insured, and I'm like, but I just graduated from college. I did a good thing. Now I gotta make sure I don't get sick. So the state of Georgia has really did a good job, in my opinion, of introducing state contracted services, and I know Chris 180, you all do that. So it helps to try to provide a service for them, but it's nowhere near enough of what we really need, especially with the growing of the population and the need that they have.
I would also add to just remember that when you are searching for a counselor, it's an interview process that you are taking this counselor on. So it's not an automatic that the very first person you sit in front of is going to be someone you want to speak to, you feel comfortable speaking to. And a lot of times we have that expectation, like you're a professional, I'm supposed to be able to speak to you. But you have to consider all of your experiences and the type of person you want to sit down and receive facilitation support from. And don't be discouraged if the first person isn't the right person. Try again, try somebody else. Maybe you tried a male and that wasn't what you needed. Go try a female. Maybe he was too old and you want somebody younger. You have to consider the perspective and their counseling technique, because all counselors are not created equal and all techniques are different. And so you have to just be willing to go through the process like you would with your medical physician to say, I feel comfortable talking to this person about this stuff, and I feel like I'm not being judged. I feel like they can walk me through everything I need and teach me coping mechanisms that work for me, not that came just from a textbook. And so give yourself time.
Really simple. I got a referral. I started asking people who they were using, and a friend of mine's referred me to someone. So again, just like word of mouth, I asked, hey, have you ever gone to a therapist? And just to give me some recommendations. So.
The other thing I would say is what I did on both of my occasions, because I live in Dallas, Texas, so I come here and fly here. I went back to my provider, because sometimes you may want to go to that person, but what you first want to do is make sure that that person is on the list of the providers that they have, and then go back and sit down and say, okay, this is what I'm having and this is what's going on. Do you cover that? Do you have a system that work around that? Because what I found out is what I was getting in Texas when I'm in Texas is totally different when I get here in the state of Georgia. And so you want to make sure that you realize that everybody's not going to give you the same thing or the same system. So you want to make sure that whoever you connect yourself with is first of all going to be the right fit for you, but also ain't going to be the person that's going to tell your business in the office.
All right, give our panelists a hand. It was rich It was empowering. I want to call up Dr. Sharon Ben Harley to close us out, and I want the panelists to stay put because we're going to take a picture once she closes out. But thank you all for coming and staying. It's an excellent panel. If you didn't get your question, we have an index card. We're going to take your question and give it to the panelists, so we'll get your question answered. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. This is awesome. Wasn't that great, guys? This warms my heart. This makes me feel good. We're spending good money at the authority, aren't we? I want to say thank you to our partners, to everybody that attended, and of course to our Commissioner Larry Johnson. I cannot say how dedicated and committed Commissioner Johnson is to his community. And it's with leaders like him that we're able to do what we do at the authority. Thank you to the partners. And this is a perfect example of what we try to exemplify at the authority. We might get the funding and the dollars, but we don't want to create a new wheel. These guys are doing it. Aren't they doing it, guys? So that's what we want to see. And I'm going to give our plug for our annual health summit at Fulton-DeKalb Hospital Authority. It's in October. What's the date, guys? October 7th. Free attendance. All you have to do is register on our website. And we make sure this is a continuous conversation with all our partners. We have follow-up conversations every 2-3 months. Last but not least, we need you to fill out this evaluation form. So we grade ourselves, we grade our partners, and this is what we use to determine how our dollars are spent, just like the census Commissioner Johnson mentioned. So once again, thank everybody for coming. It was a pleasure having you, and we look forward to working with everyone here. And last but not least, to the young people who showed up tonight and communicated, expressed themselves, showed their emotions. This is what healthy DeKalb is. Thank you.